Hello strategy gaming enthusiasts, my name is AlzboHD. In today's challenge video, we are going to live as long as possible in CK3 by stacking as many health modifiers as humanly possible. We will transform an unlanded Easter egg character into an immortal god emperor, living so long that his great-grandson heirs haven't a prayer at succession. Immortality is technically impossible in CK3, but in this video, I'll teach you how to wash your hands and turn back the sands of time to live forever young. Our chronicles commence in 1066 AD in the court of Earl Wulfstan of Herefordshire. His unlanded spymaster Ewan is a lazy, craven, and stubborn character modeled after a CK3 developer and is the only character to start with 14 health in-game. Naturally, we're going to grant him the county of Gloucestershire and swap characters to our new stubborn sovereign. Earl Ewan is an amateurish plotter that surprisingly has the schemer trait, incredibly high intrigue, and is a drunk feeble imbecile who is weak, one-eyed, one-legged, and mortally maimed. All the same, he's the best candidate to live long and prosper, and with most of the schemer tree already unlocked, he set about elevating his obscure dynasty by marrying a fair French maiden. But everyone hated him on account of their count's characteristics, and with his Anglo-Saxon liege at war with Norway and Normandy, Ewan decided to take a trip abroad. Through the fire and the rains, Ewan got down with the sickness, but his path to Jerusalem netted him piety and the pilgrim trade. Next, he'd fabricate a claim on Dublin, fabricate a claim on an Anglo-Saxon maiden, and was made into an adulterer when she exposed her sovereign's secret. While Ewan was known for his trustworthy character, his newborn bastard Surprisa inherited his intelligence, and he set about writing poetry to his not-so-secret lover, Hung Fu. His wife hated this one simple trick, and after Ewan legitimized little Lulf Ewanson, our count fell into a life of sin. Hide your kids and hide your wife, as Ewan took to the knife and took the life of Dublin's dukes. He then forced his liege to appoint him steward of state, sealed the fate of a second Irish count, and used his fabricated hooks to recruit the best courtiers of his day. When he wasn't wasted on mead, he upheld his assassin's creed, married off his bastard seed, and liquidated the Leinster lords until he could declare war on a literal baby. But Ewan's army was tiny, and he'd have to rely on his betrothal allies to invade the island of Ayr. The situation was dire, but thankfully his foreign friends arrived in the nick of time. Leinster was occupied, and peace procured the Pale and Dublin as well. Ewan could now move his capital to this new Norse settlement, and he opted to adopt its existing culture to identify as a Norse guy. His new culture's tradition greatly enhanced his pre-existing poetry, but performative honor meant that his craven characteristics would now drain prestige, and his weak and delicate frame would bring shame upon his family's name. All the same, Ewan now looked like a pirate, was publicly exposed as a murderer, and claimed the Isle of Man to expand his holdings. War was now in store against Scotland, Thordir was born, and Ewan's friends made short work of any resistance. With Man under occupation, Ewan forgot his Armenian lessons, defeated the Scots outside of Dublin, captured the Scottish sovereign's son in Man, and his wife had lost her life. By 1080 AD, peace had procured our pirate the Isle of Man, and it was time to raise a runestone and make Scotland pay for it. And speaking of payment, our 40-year-old liege set his sights on stewardship and used his fabricated claims and hooks to reappropriate fiat for his fiefdom. After he murdered his own liege's life, Mercia was ripe for the taking, and Ewan declared war for freedom while abducting his late liege's son, effectively ending the war without raising a single sword. In the space of 0 days, Ewan was now direct subject to the English king, and his trustworthy reputation secured his place as spymaster of state and newfound Jarl of the Duchy of Man. Over the following years, Ewan mailed in a Galician bride, absolved his sin by taking the road to Rome, and swapped his lifestyle path yet again to medicine in order to secure health and happiness. Skål! As Norse cultural head, Ewan set about reforming into practice piratry to eventually obtain the Viking trait, occupied more of Ireland and Ossory, and extorted his friends and family for currency. Swiggity swooty, Ewan was out for the booty, but cultural piracy meant a prestige penalty. Regardless, our pirate protagonist had his liege assassinated, used his hooks to force his fellow vassals into his faction, and successfully declared the independence of man as a 57-year-old man. Piracy appeals to the male fantasy, and our Manxian monarch raided Ayr to hire unpaid volunteers to develop Dublin. The annexation of Athlone preceded an Irish insurrection, but the Paddies had chosen death, and a runestone commemorated their extinction. Irish it went differently, but Ewan capitalized on Ireland's demise by moving court to the Isle of Man. As a raiding legend, he'd never trade with savages, and our king had become Viking. Through piracy and papal treaties, this influx of gold made our monarchy greedy, and Meath was back on the menu. In military affairs, Thormund was taken in 1106 AD, while the nearby Anglo-Saxon king was kidnapped to ensure peace and the seizure of Somerset in 0 days. When Ewan wasn't hunting Scots kings for sport, he had decided to create Irish-Norse hybrids, also known as the Manx culture. Thanks to the Irish pastoralist tradition, this new culture granted him a global health modifier and erased his previous prestige penalties, and at 77, Ewan was thick-boned but in excellent condition. His mission had now shifted to securing the Emirate of Ibiza, and after invading in 1120 AD, Ewan and friends felled the Island Boys and manned Majorca. Cyprus was claimed, the healthy trait was gained, and our spare wife had ended her life. Ewan was now a bachelor, and instead of pulling an Edward VIII, he opted to mate with a Catholically shunned apostate. This prestigious princess could effectively be divorced and remarried every Thursday of every week, netting Ewan plus 700 prestige and some cheese with her wine. It took time, but with 14,000 prestige, our elderly divorcee had enough fame to become a living legend, and at long last could claim his title to the Kingdom of Man. And speaking of titles, this video is sponsored by Established Titles. In Scottish tradition, landowners are referred to as lords and ladies, and Established Titles lets you buy as little as 1 square foot of Scottish land, so that you can call yourself a lord or lady. You can even grant the title to your pets, and Established Titles hooked up my cat with her own certificate to commemorate her first birthday. She's now Lady Lila, but not every queen wears a crown. Established Titles make for great gifts, and they all feature a unique plot number with geographic location. A tree is planted with every order to ensure sustainability, and you can even change your title to Lord or Lady on your credit cards to gain prestige. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will also be next to Lady Lila, allowing you to be a part of Alsbo history. Support the channel, the planet, and Lady Lila by using the code ALSBO10 to get 10% off your next order and become your very own lord or lady of your own domain. At long last, the Kingdom of Man was in Ewan's hands, and our protagonist was now Pirate King and the Lord of Blood and Bling. His trustworthy title had transformed to the Great and Terrible, and our 84-year-old sovereign was the spitting image of a scurvy stereotype. Our dynasty's legacy now enabled us to ransom for prestige, but to extend his long life, he'll need to take a trip to the land of health modifiers, and Ewan thus set off for the east. Our captain laid claim to Cyprus, declared war on Byzantium, and in the same day kidnapped the child Basilius to obtain a Day Zero peace treaty. Ewan decided to get his freak on while visiting the Greeks on the island, and soon he obtained the whole-of-body trait to push his 90-year-old body to the absolute limit. Further to the east, the land of the Indus promised health and fortune, and thus Crusader Mecca would be claimed to extend our diplomatic range. Ewan would visit this capital of the Kingdom of God, ignored the ongoing crusade for Seljuk Syria, siphoned sacred funds from the Pope, and then proclaimed himself to be a spawn of Satan. Our blasphemous pirate then murdered the Kid King of France and declared war on Catholic Mecca in 1134 AD. What's more, the French joined this war, so Ewan ordered a murder encore before landing upon the Levantine shore. The Aragonese king of Jerusalem initially evaded capture, but with Jerusalem falling 1 year later, he found himself a guest of the Manxian monarchy, and finally ceded Mecca to the Kingdom of Man. This Bedouin port would be a springboard into further expansion into Saqqara, and under advice from his doctor, Yuan legalized medicinal herbs in the hopes of obtaining health modifiers. When our so-called spawn of Satan found out about witchcraft and wizardry, he demanded to learn of the dark arts, which he then used to corrupt the hearts of his senior spawnlings. He only needed 3 of his children to convert to create a coven, and the island of Ireland would be absorbed under diplomatic vacillation. With Socotra claimed and the island profaned, it was time to proclaim the 100th anniversary of our aging autarch. It was time for a celebration for our spawn of Satan, as Yuan was now over 100 years old and in good health. A pirate's life of plunder and booty had our sovereign looking 40 years younger, and after laying claim to the coast of Kuch, declared war on Solani in 1141 AD. His daughter, Astrid Yuansdotter, had at last embraced witchcraft, meaning that Yuan could now found a witch coven, which would bestow a further positive health modifier for the entire Coedcroft clan. Kutch would fall into Yuan's clutch. The Hindu holy site of Haridwar and its health bonuses were claimed, and our cynical sovereign made the smart decision to convert to Smartism. Hinduism is quite possibly the best faith for a long life, and Yuan set about setting his bhakti to Lord Vishnu for yet another health boost. Smartism also allows for secondary spouses, and our horny Hindu can now stuff his harem with teenage brides a fraction of his own age. In 1143, he decreed that England would be enlightened to the ways of the Karma Sutra, and declared a battle for Britain. The Anglo-Saxon armies were routed within the West Midlands and again in Banbury, and soon his Indian allies would heed his call and set off for Albion. With Indian assistance, English resistance was in full collapse, and in 3 years London was taken, and the English crown was passed down. Yuan would people these lands with Manx-cultured Hindu hands, and, back in India, the Kingdom of Man subjugated the Sivarajids in an effort to retake the holy site of Haridwar, which now granted our smart sovereign yet another health modifier. By 110, Yuan was accumulating mass, walked the Hindu holy paths, and subjugated Solanki, which made him thinner and more cynical. The Holy Order of Smartism was established in Bristol and granted to the followers of Arjuna, while the war for Wales waged to the north. These petty fiefdoms would fall one by one to our ancient autarch, and the plight of the Welsh sent a delight to our sovereign, whose life and health was reaffirmed. By 122, our disciple of Vishnu was feeling good, but a crusade for England threatened the balance of the Kingdom of Man. That's because this holy war was basically a world war, but with the help of Yuan's Indian allies, the monarchy of Man deleted the Crusaders off of the British coastline. The Pope himself was assassinated, the invading armies were routed, and by 1167, the crusade was halted by Smartist supremacy. There was to be no doubt as to Yuan's sacred lineage, and our senile sovereign became anointed by consecrating his bloodline. For Old Lang Syne, Yuan was 129 and feeling fine. The kingdoms of England and Wales were forged, and at long last an empire could be founded. Yuan was now the immortal emperor of the newly established Imperium of Man, and it was time to reform the Manx culture into Stoicism to provide yet another health boost. To celebrate the occasion, Rajas across the land donated skulls to decorate the new Imperium skull throne. Maidens blew off Yuan's steam for health and happiness, and a successive line of popes were murdered for pleasure. But at 138 years old, Yuan's health was taking a turn for the worse, as he slipped into obesity and became a prisoner to his body's infirmity. This poor RNG would guarantee his reincarnation, and he knew his century and a half of life was coming to an end. In spite of medicinal mead, he had reached 140 and was near death. In the comfort of his family and friends, Yuan donned the robes of the yogis and awaited his new life. This emperor of the Imperium of Man had transcended the material plane and left behind his meat vehicle. His 112 years of rule meant that most of his sons and daughters had died, and only his oldest 70-year-old son would inherit. This morbidly obese monstrosity would have to carry mankind, but let's focus instead on the legacy of Yuan and explore his dynasty and domain. In 1179 AD, the Imperium of Man rules over England, Wales, Ireland, and the Isle of Man, with further territories in the Mediterranean, principalities in India, and absolute control over Mecca and thus the Muslim Ummah. Our state's smartest Hindu faith is dominant among the home islands. The Manx culture is present from Man to Medina and is itself infused with health modifiers like medicinal herbalism, pastoralism, and a stoic ethos for disease resistance. In essence, everything we've done is in an effort to live as long as possible. Our one-armed, one-legged, one-eyed flesh vessel has a plethora of modifiers to ensure his functional immortality, and 4 of his previous children have died while waiting for their turn in line. The Coig-Croft dynasty consists of 43 living offspring of our 140-year-old horny Hindu, and with which covens provides a health bonus to every living house member. These members are themselves landed rulers of the Imperium of Man, an empire whose court is the most prestigious in the entire world. Buddha statues, Buddha teeth, and the skull throne anoint Yuan's home, and our late leader's KD ratio was 80-1. Yuan single-handedly murdered 14 emperors, 20 kings, 6 popes, 20 dukes, and a variety of counts to reduce stress and obtain success. His lifestyle paths focused on stewardship for cash flow, intrigue for kidnapping, money laundering and murder, and education for huge health bonuses and the ability to more easily convert to Hinduism. Outside of the Imperium, the evil Xenos ruled over a largely unchanged medieval map, with a Czech Holy Roman Emperor, a standard Scandinavia, a large Byzantium, and a Turco-Persian Empire to the east. It is thus unfortunate that the realm passes into the hands of Yuan's 70-year-old obese heir, Herminger. This creepy clown head is married to a wife 56 years his junior, but with a poor health, this heir is likely going nowhere. For fun, I decided to save Scum after this campaign and see how long Yuan could make it without RNG infirmity, and it seems 150 is the limit, but if you've seen someone older, I invite you to let me know in the comments below. In conclusion, the answer to a long life is to practice Hinduism in the Himalayas, wash your damn hands, breed with the Irish for pastoral pleasure, eat exotic food by avoiding English cuisine, and have the genetics of a Paradox programmer and the RNG of a console commander. Help keep my channel alive by liking this video and subscribing to the channel to join me each week for maps, meat, and mayhem. Say hello by dropping a comment below, and if you'd like to support me even more, consider donating to AlzboHD on Patreon or by donating basic attention tokens through the Brave browser. This video is sponsored by Established Titles, and I invite you to check out the description and pinned comment below to learn more. It's time to reincarnate and roll the credits.